Are you worried about today's dire financial situation?
Put simply, I would argue the Biden economic plan is working.
The storms on Wall Street continue today after regulators seized the assets of Silicon Valley Bank, marking the largest bank failure since the 2008 financial crisis.
Do you worry you'll have enough to pay your mortgage, pay your children's college tuition, enough to retire?
I believe our banking system remains strong.
Regional banks in focus once again today as the market digests the fallout of the First Republic failure.
You have questions, we have answers. It's The Gold Standard with Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn.
Thank you for joining us on the Gold Standard radio show. Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn back together again. And Ken, let me be the first to say happy tax collection week.
Hold on a second. I have my notes here. They're highlighted. Thank you, Jen. It's so nice to see you. Pause. It's so nice to do another show with you. End
Repeat
quote.
the line.
Yes, repeat the line. It's so nice to do a show with you. That's all I have.
Hey, you sound a
I
lot
can't
like
answer
Joe
any
Biden.
questions.
Not that we name names here, but we name names here. Woo. Yeah, that guy in his highlighted notes, I don't know if he would know. I mean, he clearly doesn't know how to get off of a stage.
I am willing to spend
Yeah.
money that I don't have.
Okay.
I am willing to print money.
Yeah.
I am willing to take out unlimited debt. I am willing to lie. And I am willing to feed Wall Street and tell them and do whatever they want me to do.
Who are you?
I am capable of being the United States of America president. And
Unreal.
the only difference is I love America.
That's right.
I don't hate America.
So you'd be doing it for the right reasons.
And the other difference is I don't have to wear a diaper.
Man.
I don't want to get too, personal.
It's a leaky
I can't
situation.
stand up. I do wear Hoka sneakers.
Those are good shoes, though.
Yeah.
To be fair, I mean, I understand you want to stay planted on the ground. It's all right. Those things have a thick sole.
But I'm going to be calm today.
All right.
We're going to talk. What's the name of this show?
This is called The Gold Standard.
Okay.
It's a radio show.
Mm-hmm.
You're Ken Russo. I'm Jennifer Horn. And we are going to, I actually pulled a story for you today. I was thinking of you and I saw this story and it made me laugh. So we'll get to that in a second. But
What's
first,
the title of this show?
Oh, the title is The Gold Standard Radio Show.
No.
Oh, the title of this show.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Our dollar is worth what?
Okay, here
You
we go.
got to say it like that, too. Our dollar is worth what?
What?
Yeah.
Our dollar is worth what?
There
What
you
is
go.
our dollar worth, Ken?
A lot less than it was 20 or 30 years ago.
All right, this paper or a dollar? What's got more value? It's a question. It's a question. So before we get started, let's jump in to how we got here. It's how we start our show every single week, and that is important for people to understand. Our currency used to be backed by gold. That stopped in 1971. Richard Nixon took us off the gold standard. We have basically now a dollar that is backed by nothing.
The Nixon Shock.
The Nixon Shocker.
I'm going to do it to these Americans.
And he did it.
No more convertibility of the dollar into gold. But yes, Federal Reserve Bank
Yep.
formed in 1913 by President Woodrow Wilson. Thanks, Woody. Thanks a lot, Wood. Yeah. Way to go, Wood. This was basically the start of the Federal Reserve note system that we have today. And 1933 was actually the first time that we really devalued the dollar, as President Roosevelt made it illegal for United States citizens to own gold. And that kind of was, I think, an eye-opening event for most Americans. They pegged the price of gold at, it was at $20.67 in 1933, and then it jumped up to $34 after they asked everybody to turn in their gold. Kind of like Australia just asked everybody to turn in their guns, right?
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, well, they get
I
they get
guess.
everybody a little used to something, and then all of a sudden it's the general public.
Don't you love our freedom? I mean, I think a lot of us just have sort of we have had this awakening that maybe our freedom's under attack.
Well,
over
it
the last
is.
few
Our
years.
freedom is under attack.
But I would say that it started maybe back then when they're saying, "Hey, you can't own gold anymore, guys."
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, that's a good reason why for somebody to even own gold is
Sure.
because, our freedom is under attack. Our privacy is under attack. We have a fake government.
Yep.
Pretty much. We have a fake banking system, pretty much. And we have fake money supported by fake debt that's created out of thin air. But the consequences, Jen, are going to be very real. And one of the consequences is that our dollar from this period is now worth a lot less than it was then. Our dollar is worth what?
What?
Yeah.
Okay. But actually finish that. I was just going to
Yeah, so as we go on, 1944, the Bretton Woods Agreement, and then the dollar becomes basically the world reserve currency. And then fast forward to 1971, where the United States reneged and, people in other countries, especially France, were converting their dollars into gold that we were, sending to them, but supposedly our reserves were starting to run out. So we had to renege, basically, in default on the Bretton Woods Agreement. And that's when President Nixon did the Nixon Shock. Obviously, he was ordered to do so. And following orders, he took the dollar completely off the gold standard. From that point on, folks, 1971, our dollar is now backed by nothing. And all the other currencies of the world, it's the same thing. It's all fiat. And this is kind of why we're in this mess today, because all these governments, especially our own, have abused the power of printing money and borrowing money and spending money. And that has slowly but surely not only weakened the whole system, Jen, but it's severely devalued our money. And people always say, well, gold was, let's see, $34, $35, right, in 1971. And now it's over $2,400.
I'd say that's a nice little grow, right, over time. I think it's important to underscore when they took us off the gold standard, when we have a fiat currency now that's backed by nothing, it's a great plan. This is how they can print all that money, how they can spend, how they can borrow. They don't have to back it up. They can just say, you know what, you need more money? Fine. Here it is. Hit the printing press. And what does that leave us with? It leaves us in a situation where we've worked really hard. We've come up with the nest egg that we think that we need to survive, whether we're still working or we're in retirement, but our dollar doesn't buy as much anymore, right? We all go to the grocery store and we go, oh my gosh, eggs, milk, all the costs of gasoline, even to heat your house or water going into your house. I mean, those prices constantly go up. So the amount of money you thought you needed to survive is no longer cutting it. And that's why we tell you have to protect all that money that you've earned, and you can do that with gold. Yeah,
because basically the definition of inflation is that our money continues to be devalued. And as our money's devalued, the more they print and the more they borrow, the price of gold reflects that at a higher price.
Right.
So back in, 2008, when gold was, $300 6 or 7 years before then, and then we had the great financial crisis, gold went from $250 to $1,900 in a 10-year period. It reflected at that time all of the money that was printed and the financial abuses of the system at that time. So a lot of people even say today, well, is gold high? Well, if you look at it and all of the money that's been printed and all of the abuse to the system and all the debt that's never going to be repaid, and our inflation numbers, Jen, are artificially reported. They're not. They're much worse than they're reported. The numbers are not realistic whatsoever.
And we've heard what we heard when Biden took office. When Trump was in office, it was like 1.6%. Okay. And then you hear Biden take office. Okay, it's 9%. Now he's celebrating that inflation is decreasing, but that's actually because he's at 6% now, even though he was down a little bit lower than that, and now it's bounced up. The point is, it doesn't matter what that percentage number is, where they say inflation is. You know where it is.
Yeah, we know what the purchasing power is of our money, right? Of course. And the problem, though, really, with all of our debt is interest rates as well, because interest rates now are much different than where they were just even 4 or 5 years ago. And you have to pay interest on debt, right?
Right.
So when the government and corporations and even consumers like you and I, if we have debt and we have to refinance that debt, it's going to cost a lot more to service that debt. So if you have a government that's 35 or 36 trillion in debt, and it's really probably 250 trillion when you count all these unfunded liabilities, at 0% or 0.1 or 0.5%, it's not that bad to service that debt. But now at 5%, 6%, 7%, you're talking about $3 trillion a year to just pay for the interest on our debt.
Keep up the interest.
And where's that going to come from? Where they're going to print that too. So we're in a system. Basically, it's going to be either inflate or die. Inflate or die.
And how long can you do that?
Well, in my opinion, they're going to inflate until it pops, and then the markets and the economy are going to die.
And that's not just us. I think it's important to understand. I mean, everything is so, I hate to use the term, we are global, but truly everything is so related. Yeah. And it's not just our country. Now, our country has been a big abuser of this system, but other world governments, too, are taking the opportunity now to start looking into gold. At least that's what you've told me.
Yeah, they are. And now at one time, these other governments were a big buyer of United States debt, right? Mm-hmm. So they kind of helped us. Now they're kind of saying, well, listen, this is a very risky situation, and this isn't going to end well for the United States and their debt and their money. We don't want to buy that debt anymore. And what are these other countries and what are these central banks doing? Mm-hmm. They're buying gold. So you have to follow the money. And one key thing that I saw this week from a writer that I really do admire, Bill Bonner, he said, gold is not a way to get rich. Gold is a way to not be poor.
Okay, you got to lay that one on me again, because that is our bumper sticker for the week.
I wish I could write as good as this gentleman. Gold is not a way to get rich. Gold is a way to not be poor. And when you think about it, we're entering a period where you need to be really careful and defensive about some of the things that you have. You need to diversify, and some of your wealth, whether liquid, IRA, 401k, money at the bank, whatever, it needs to be in a tangible asset that you could hold that has a proven track record of being a store of value. And that's gold and, of course, to a lesser degree, silver. But that's what we're talking about here, folks. This is not going to end well. They could only print so much money, before something really bad happens. Right. They could only take out so much leverage. The banks could only trade so many derivatives before something really bad happens. You need to make some plans to protect yourself and prepare yourself for what's coming. That's the way I would look at it, because eventually it's going to be here, and you don't want to be wiped out.
That's right.
When that happens.
And it's not doomsday. You still have time to do this, to take care of yourself, your family, all of that money. This is, Ken's talking about here is wealth preservation mode, basically. You've worked really hard. You've earned that money. Now it's time to preserve some of your money, at least a piece of it, in gold and precious metals. And you can do that with Midas Gold Group. They are America First Patriots. They are veteran owned. My favorite thing is they're real people. You're not calling a random call center somewhere. You're going to get real one-on-one contact and help with the folks over at Midas Gold Group. So call them today, 855-322-4653. That's the number to call, 855-322-GOLD, 855-322-4653. Get all the resources at MidasGoldGroup.com. You can even see them in person. Thousand Oaks, California, Phoenix, Arizona, MidasGoldGroup.com. All right, there's more up ahead. I've got an article for you, Ken.
Okay, good.
It's a Gold Standard Radio Show with Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn.
Dr. Gorka here. You're listening to The Gold Standard with your hosts, Ken Russo from veteran-owned Midas Gold Group and Jennifer Horn. Owning private money in the form of physical gold and silver is perhaps more important than ever to your long-term financial security. As U.S. banks fail, the Biden administration sends hundreds of billions abroad while depleting our strategic oil reserves. However, the biggest financial threat may be coming from within: central bank digital currency. The patents have been filed and the big banks have released plans for implementation. Midas Gold Group sees tyrannical implications, the end of cash, the end of financial privacy, big government able to see your every purchase. Could there be ties to social credit? Hear more commentary on the political and economic issues that affect your financial security right here on The Gold Standard. You can create your own gold standard with a call to Midas Gold Group, 855-322-GOLD. That's 855-322-4653, MidasGoldGroup.com.
Welcome back. It is a Gold Standard Radio Show. Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn back together again. And I just saw this headline. We were talking about inflation earlier.
Lay it on me.
And it just made me laugh. The Feds.
Must be from one of our politicians.
The Fed's Jerome Powell says inflation data this year shows a, quote, lack of progress. I guess that means in regular person talk that
And,
it
and
stinks.
whose fault is that, Jerome?
Well, that's a great question. He doesn't say.
Whose
He
fault
doesn't
is
say.
that?
But it says Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell said it's likely that inflation will take longer than expected to reach the central bank's 2% target, casting fresh doubt on when policymakers may cut interest rates again this year. That's what they're always talking about. Are we going to cut interest rates? So you've said for a long time they were too low for forever.
Yeah, too low for a long time now. I mean, why would they cut interest rates? I mean, unless something really bad happens with the economy, right, or the markets. I mean, but they need to, because that goes back to what I was just talking to you about before. The government has to refinance its debt eventually.
So they need lower interest rates.
Absolutely.
So they'll do
how is
it for
that going to happen?
themselves.
So if these other countries are not buying our debt, right? Because if you buy debt, then that means the price of bonds go up and the interest rates fall, right? Mm-hmm. So who's going to buy it?
Isn't it it is a really big scam when you think about it.
Well, it is. So they're going to print the money, and then
Yeah.
the Fed will either buy the interest rates, or they have to convince the Wall Street banks that they lend the money to anyway, create the money out of thin air to give it to the banks,
Yeah.
to buy the treasuries in a way. So it's just a big shell game.
It's so
what
crazy.
what fake program is going to come up next, so that they can kind of backdoor quantitative easing where they kind of just print money out of thin air and then buy bonds. It's all a shell game. So the question is, are you willing to risk everything that you've saved and invested and try to do the right thing on their game?
Right.
Because
it's
their
never going to
game-
work for us. It's their
No.
game, right?
They're going to be okay. The corporate elite, the 1%, if they're worth $900 billion and then they get cut to $500 billion, even if that $500 billion buys less, they're still going to be okay.
Yeah.
But the people, that have $200,000 or $300,000, $500,000, $600,000, even $1 million or $2 million, it's not what it used to be.
It's not the rich. That's right.
Let's look at some of these numbers real quick.
All right. Let's run the numbers. I'm ready.
Well, real quick.
Yes.
Let's see. $100 in 1971 would have the same purchasing power today as $745.
Man.
So if you bought $100 worth of groceries back in 1971, more than likely that same bag of groceries would now cost $745. Okay? That's something this is real life stuff, okay?
Yeah.
What else? Claude AI.
We love
And I
him.
asked Claude AI, I said, hey, Claude AI, how much has the dollar lost in value
He
since
said,
2000?
"Oui, Mr. Ken."
And the numbers went out. Yeah. 1 minus parentheses 1 divided by 1.76 times 100% equals parentheses open 1 minus. And I just saw the numbers.
Yeah.
Claude AI said the dollar's lost 44% since
Okay.
2000. Now, in my opinion, Claude AI is low.
Just a little, he's
He's
a Pollyanna.
low. Well, he's believing the fake numbers.
Sure.
He can't think for himself. Not yet, anyway.
It's coming.
He's just reading all of the fake numbers that have been reported for the last 24 years, which have downplayed inflation. But when you think about it, we are going to have a debt crisis. We are going to have a currency crisis. And we're in the middle right now of an inflation crisis. And that's the same pattern, Jen, that every superpower, whether it be France in the 1700s or the Weimar Republic, where you have a country that was at one time very healthy. Then they get too big, and then they have a big military,
Right.
and then they start to spend more than they take in, and then they lean and rely on borrowing money that they don't have. And that's the same exact strategy that our government has taken over the past few decades.
Sad thing is, we know that doesn't end well.
It leads to social unrest,
Right.
and then it leads to financial and currency collapse. So I hope that doesn't happen. You and I have talked many times about we're going to come out of this someday on the better side of it.
Right.
But the question is, during that process, how do you stay financially intact? And how do you kind of distance yourself from being blown up financially? And one way to do that is to take some money out of the bank and put it into gold. Transfer some money from your 401k or your IRA and put it into gold. At least you know, no matter what happens with the financial system or these Wall Street criminals or these banking fraudsters or these political hacks, no matter what happens, you at least know that you're going to have your gold and you're going to at least have your silver. And for most people, that's a big advantage rather than I can't get to my money.
Right.
My bank won't send my money to where I want it to. I can only take out so much. Well, the government has now made me invest in treasuries in my IRA or my 401k. I really didn't want to do that. I mean, where's the money going to come from? Where are the investors going to come from? They can only print so much and spend so much. They need someone to buy the debt. As these other countries don't want to do it anymore, we all know who's going to be left holding the bag.
Yeah.
Now, if you have a private asset like gold, that's your business. It's private. Nobody knows about it. It's nobody's, you don't have to do any reporting requirements as long as you're doing things legally within the law, which is how we run our business.
I would hope so.
Yes.
Since we're on the radio talking about
that's
it.
true, right.
It's not really the good way to be underhanded,
No, it's not. And but these tools are available. It's just that you're not going to hear it from your advisor.
Right.
You're not going to hear it from television. You're not going to hear it from mainstream media. You're not going to hear it from our politicians. You're not going to hear it from Wall Street bankers. You have to think for yourself.
They're kind of part of the system, though, and that's why it's important to look at who is talking to you independently about. And I look at this, you said it, and I think it's really important to underscore, and that is wealth diversification. We were talking about how you go through periods of life where you're in wealth creation. Now we're kind of in wealth preservation mode, but you want to diversify. And I'm sure that there are a lot of people saying, well, maybe I don't have that money set aside right now to invest in gold. I'd really like to, but a lot of times people don't think about old 401ks or IRAs that you can actually convert into gold, which makes it a really easy way to do this.
Yeah, or they may know somebody that needs help.
Yeah.
And what was the saying again? Gold is not a way to get rich. Gold is a way to not be poor.
Which I love.
I mean, it's relevant, and I think that it's never been more important than today because our debt is so big and there's just too many dollars and there's so much leverage. And we have all of our financial institutions that are supposed to be the ones that we trust. They have all these derivatives. They're the most risky. And then we have politicians that are supposed to have our best interests in mind. And that's just simply not the case.
Yep.
They're gonna do whatever it takes to remain in power, and they're going to do whatever it takes to buy votes, to be reelected. That's what they're going to do. Nobody is going to come in and make these hard decisions until it's absolutely, inevitably, the only thing that they're going to be able to do because there's nowhere else to turn. Financially, we're not going to want to have all of our assets in a system that's in that situation. You could stay in a position of strength. Gold is strength.
Yeah.
Gold is sovereignty. Gold is freedom.
You can trust yourself. You're probably not
at
trusting
least for a portion of what you have.
Yeah.
I mean, and my question, Jen, to anyone, you, Mike, why would you ever have all of your money in such a sick system, drowning in debt, and you don't even control the money?
And I'll be honest with you, Ken, because you actually, I'm not going to say you actually taught me something. You teach me something every week, truly. But one of the things that I think you opened my eyes to is that being in talk radio, of course, I was already, I didn't trust the government. I don't trust the government. Democrats, Republicans, it doesn't matter. Yes, there are some good politicians, but not everybody has our best interest at heart. I was already questioning them. But I think what you really opened my eyes to is the fact that I thought I could trust the bank. I've got my FDIC insurance, everything's fine. And then you tell me, wait a second, there's not enough insurance. If something really big happens, there's not enough insurance for them to replace that for you. You really kind of told me that the best thing to do is make sure that you have something that you can get a hold of because you really can't trust the system. It's not just the politicians.
Yeah, and those are all just facts. We don't make these situations or these scenarios up. It would just make a lot of sense to be able to control and to keep an eye on, to know that some of your wealth is accessible, to know that some of your wealth is private, know that some of your wealth is within your control. And in my opinion, like I said, it's more important today than ever. I mean, when I ask myself how much good could happen financially in the next 10 years versus how much bad,
Yeah.
I mean, so what's good? My house goes up a little bit in value.
That'll probably happen.
My stock market goes up a little bit in value. Okay, so that's the best?
Right.
If I ever say to myself, well, how much can go wrong? Geez, there's a big list, Jen. And the way that I'm going to combat and protect myself from that list is by owning gold, by owning some silver, and giving myself a chance to survive financially rather than just giving all of my trust into a system and a government and a banking system that I don't understand and I don't trust.
Protect yourself. Take that freedom back. Bring it home with you to watch over your money, your interests. Again, let's do this headline. Gold is not a way to get rich. Gold is a way to not be poor.
Bravo, bravo.
Thank you. 855-322-GOLD. That's the number to call. Midas Gold Group, America First Patriots, veteran-owned. 855-322-4653. You can see them face-to-face in Thousand Oaks, California, or in Phoenix, Arizona, and you can get all kinds of resources at MidasGoldGroup.com. That's MidasGoldGroup.com or 855-322-GOLD. Always a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us. It's a Gold Standard Radio Show with Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn.